Again, we're both in Canada. This is a little unusual for me for some of these live webinars. I tend to get people from all over the world, so it's nice to get a Canadian. Although I think last time we talked, you picked up on my accent pretty quick. So
Well, I have one as well, so I'm pretty sensitive to it.
yeah, we're both. I'm from the opposite end of the world from where you came from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really good. So you're in Vancouver, and how is it there today?
Beautiful out. It's we're in June, which for us is normally May is normally very sunny. June can be rainy and up, and if you don't like
Okay.
the rain, you don't live in Vancouver. So we've had some sun and some rain, and give me 5 minutes, it'll change again.
Yeah, we've had some quite a bit of rain ourselves. In fact, I'm due to come out in August, so I'll have to pick your brain about the weather for August. Yeah,
Oh, August, I don't go away in the summer, very rarely, just
yeah.
because July and August is so good here. And of course, now we can't travel anyway, so that doesn't help. So
Mm.
I'm
Cool.
kind of hoping some of the travel restrictions will start coming off here soon.
All right. Well, look, before we get too sidetracked, allow me to introduce you. Rob Maisey is a coach and mental coach, especially with executives in different environments, personal coach. Um, he's been a sports coach and a business coach for a greater part of 25 years, and it has always focused on the mindset and supporting others to become the best version of themselves. And I think that's really key phrase, that you and I have that focus about, people can be so much better when they start to learn about themselves. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Um, he believes that a great attitude, a fair culture, and good intent will usually create sustainable team success. So the team environment again, and I think that probably comes a little bit from sports. So we might touch on that. Over the last few years, he's made a transition into professional coaching with a passion for health and happiness. He's excited to have the opportunity to talk to us today about mental health coaching, which is a really unique title. I don't think I've met anyone else who's called themselves that. Maybe that's a great place to start. What made you pick that, and what is that all about?
It's kind of maybe a combination of stubbornness and not very smart sometimes. So mental health, the biggest problem we have in everything, I'm not going to say this very well, everything comes down to how you think and how you feel. And the combination of how you think and you feel is how well your life is. When we say mental health, we always say mental health and then we immediately think of a condition. And
Right.
so I was having a
Yeah.
mental health coach, and I think, oh, you deal with anxiety, you deal with depression. Well, I deal with all feelings, but those things are feelings, not conditions. And our medical system, which has the mental health moniker, they only deal with the conditions. So what we end up with is the vast majority of mental health experts, which I will term myself a mental health expert, which also gets me some. So I have no medical background. It
Right.
also creates some concerns. The medical experts that I have got academic backgrounds are all dealing with people who are they consider broken and
Yeah.
symptoms that say they're
Yeah.
broken. So on a scale of 10, and particularly in today's society, we're really pushing into what I call a more binary decision. Everybody's got so much information. They're going yes, right, wrong. They want to know good, bad, yes, wrong very quickly. So when it comes to mental health, instead of going, it's either you're either broken and you've got a mental health condition, or you're not broken, in which case you don't need any help. Take that range to a 1 to 10.
Mm.
1 and 2 means you may need medical intervention, you may need chemical intervention, you may need many sorts of support. And there's a lot of people with those things. There's way more people that are 3 to 7, and they don't even think it because they go, well, I have no symptoms, therefore I'm well. And they're
Right.
actually not well.
Mm.
They're mentally unhealthy. But when you say mental health, because we consider mental health as being broken, and in our society, our value is how unbroken, how good we are, nobody wants to stand up and say, I'm broken.
Mm.
Nobody wants to say I'm not feeling good. So if we don't even know, most people I talk to don't even know how to define what mental health is. So that becomes where do you start that? So when I say mental health coach, it loses me business because people go, oh, you must be dealing with the broken people. And none of my business is with broken people.
All right.
So,
Yeah, it's very interesting. So what are some of the labels that we hear out there? Is narcissistic one of those ones that fall into that character, or is it just aggressive behavior, or is it none of those, even simpler than that?
Even like narcissism, it's totally misunderstood and it's misused. So we think, oh, you're selfish, then you're a narcissist. But we're all selfish. But we've labeled selfish as bad, so we don't want to admit to it. But our basic needs is we have basic needs we want to have met, which is we want to be liked, we want to be wanted, we want to be valued, we want to be recognized. There's a lot of those things that are core drivers. Now, if you're not very good at getting that, you can be labeled a narcissist, and then that's a bad thing. But and if you have a medical, psychological diagnosed condition and you're a narcissist, you're not in my area. And I get that, but it's such a small amount of people compared to the people that are just being called that, or it's being misused in society as there's something bad with you. So for me, a narcissist means, yes, there's a very small number of people that probably are. There's a whole lot of people that just aren't very good at being able to give value to get valued. There's a society's getting worse with a lot of the things, like, it doesn't matter whether it's anger. And anxiety is the classic one. Anxiety I would term as a super skill. Anxiety is the human condition that allows us to worry about what's going to happen in an imaginary future. And if you can't do that, you can't care for anybody. You can't care for others or yourself if you don't have some level of anxiety. So, but we only look at anxiety when it's so mismanaged that it's creating dysfunction in your life. And what we want to start looking at is anxiety is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Are you managing it right is the question we want to ask. And once you've done that, if you don't, as from a company, if you don't have people who are anxious about their work, you don't have anybody that cares about what's going to happen tomorrow. Right. So that concept, even they don't necessarily, we don't teach that in schools. We don't teach that. Our parents don't teach that. Our school. So we don't really teach mental health. I would say, I mean, again, everybody's different. But we just don't go out and teach it very much.
Right. And I'm guessing that in a lot of that, it's to do with communication and interacting with others, or is it also the self? So there's the external and the internal, I guess.
Really, it's all communicating. It's that's why I say team sports is good. We are designed to be stronger in groups than we are alone, and we're not designed to be alone. And that doesn't mean it's not about introversion or extroversion and whether you want it. We're designed to interact and communicate our needs with others. And if we can't do that effectively because we don't have the communication skills, we're less successful. So in a lot of cases, everybody's got this different thing inside that they believe that they're the ones that are odd, and they've got to hide these weaknesses. Right. And very few feelings. Anger is not a weakness. And there's, they say, oh, you've got to let it out. No, you don't have to let it out. You have to manage it and recognize that if you get angry, something that you wanted didn't happen. And if you blame that on somebody else, that's not very constructive. Because it's something that you'll probably even communicate, right? So you can go through most of feelings, and management is trying to make sure that your logical brain is in charge. And our logical brain we're using it less and less because it's kind of very slow. It's not our feelings that have all our decisions and our memories. So what we're doing in our society now is particularly with marketing and those kind of things, we're pushing people feel more rather than think. And if we feel, we just get triggered, and you can do it. And I don't want to sidetrack your interview, but I can say Trump, I can say Black Lives Matter, I can say white privilege. There's a whole lot of trigger words that people now aren't thinking about. They just go, well, I'm either for or against you. And our world's getting so complicated. So I think mental health is becoming a bigger issue, not a lesser issue.
Yeah, people. I think what you're saying is people get angry without realizing that there was a trigger, and they don't understand the thing that they are triggered by, right? Which is internally. I call it the hurt, right? So if some
Yes.
if something is going to hurt you physically, mentally, or financially, actually, you're going to get angry. You're going to get upset. You're going to react in a particular way, right?
But also, if somebody can convince you, and the danger is with people's beliefs. A belief is something that's really kind of an opinion, and it's one that you hold, and a few people around you hold. If someone can convince you that this is hurtful, and that's what we're doing now, we're pointing all over the world and looking at places that are things that could hurt you or you should be hurt by.
Mm.
We take those on board, and now that's controlling where we're looking. And as we look at more negative spaces, our world is actually, in many ways, becoming more negative. And it's not that uh, I don't think there's horrible things going on, but the more we focus on those things, the more we're moving to this point where we're not healthy. And
Yep.
in the workplace, because there's so many things that you can't say, and so many things, particularly the diversity. Diversity is hugely important, but diversity is accepting other people's views. We're getting worse and worse accepting other people's views. We're going, as long as your view is the same as mine, I'll accept it. So we're actually probably less accepting as we go down this road of we're going. So in the workplace, I'll go and talk to an employer, and the employer's, well, we've got nobody broken. Why do we need you? Well, I'd like to talk to the people that are not broken but are sliding down towards where they need intervention. So, and most employers' resources, they're going to say, "What's your mental health resources?" We've got the best mental health resources on the planet. They're great. Okay, so where do they start? Well, the nearest they start will be employee counseling. But even employee counseling or family service counseling, the first thing that has to happen is the employee has to put his hand up and say, "I'm broken. I've got a problem." And even then, the counseling services will be limited to 5 or 6 sessions, and they'll be dealing with the problem. Well, the employee generally is going to then go on to have another problem, because what they don't have is they don't have the right skills to solve problems. So the solution is to give them skills to solve problems, not just solve that problem for them and then put them back in the workplace. And so many employers, so you go, because so what do you have beyond that? They have nothing. And then some will have executive coaching, and that's probably great. But there's a whole lot of people that are going around, they're not happy. They have low self-confidence, they have low self-esteem, they feel less about themselves. And I personally, I don't think people should be feeling less about themselves, but because it doesn't until it affects their functionality, the employer goes, "No, I think we're good." Not all, and not, but then it's changing. But we still, I think and the reason I call myself a mental health coach is the stigma around mental health is that it's only for broken people. And until we change that, you can't change the stigma.
Yeah. Well, and unfortunately, not to bash the media too much, but on a scale of 1 to 10, if I use your continuum scale, the stuff that we really only hear about would make you think or believe that the world is full of horrible, bad people, right? And you and I know that's not necessarily true. We believe that people are intentionally, most people are looking for improving themselves. They're looking for self-satisfaction. Most people have good intentions. It's just sometimes it appears misdirected, right?
I would almost go to a fair, and I'm not the right term, but I would almost go as far as good and bad as that concept, as a belief that really damages how we deal with people. Because it doesn't matter how that other person is, they're not doing that because they're a bad person. They're doing that because they want their needs met, and their needs are different than yours. And so we get into this again, this what I call the binary thinking, that there's so much information coming at us that we have to make decisions so quickly that we just go, is it good or bad, and are you for me or against me? Right. You again, Trump did it very, very well. Not about politics, not sidetracking. What he did was make people divide people based on who supported them and who didn't.
Right.
And it's really good for getting supporters, so it's effective. Unfortunately, it creates the damage is done because of the people that don't agree with you. And marketers do it a lot. They say they come in and say something very controversial, and they believe that's separating. So if you look at our media, we live in a per click society, by click society. So from the media, they only get attention if you click and read what they're saying, which means they have to give something horrific or worse or bad, because we don't have time for anything else. So that triggers a lot of fear. Well, once you triggered fear in somebody, that's a whole scale that happens underneath both emotion and logic, that you won't stop until you find something that meets the shape of that fear. So now you've created more fearful people. But social media is the same, because the marketing comes in and says, we think we're saying, okay, you would like this, but what we're actually saying is you lack this. And so we actually marketing gives a feeling of lack, not because they're meaning to. They're trying to say it used to be, oh, you should want this and go forward to it. Yeah. But now it's saying, well, you don't have this, so you're not a success, so now you're a failure. So we've got a whole lot of people that are, and our marketing people only get paid if they can get your attention. So the demand for attention is so high now that it's really hard to ignore all that noise.
Now,
I admire the problem. I don't have a solution.
Yeah, look, I have to constantly remind myself that even though we specialize in behavior and understanding how the brain works and all these things, we're still dealing with human beings, and every one of them throws you a curveball, right?
I kind of have the analogy that you get born, you've got this control room, and basically you've got three different. You've got personalities, you've got logic, you've got emotion. So maybe there's 100 switches, and you get landed on this earth, and those 100 switches or dials, of 1 to 10 dials, are all set at random. And then your parents start twiddling with the dials by telling you what you don't do, not what you should do, what you don't do, because they can't see. So it's symptom. You do this, you're wrong. They play with dials. Then you go to high school, and then all of your friends start playing with the dials by saying, you do this, do that, do that. And all the things, you're just trying to find success. But it's just a random. And then all of a sudden you go into the workplace and you're trying to conform and be successful there. And they all the dial. Then you end up like 25, 26. And you've got a control panel it's got no labels on it, and it's all been turned, and you're meant to try and make sense of it. It's kind of unless you reset somebody to actually start looking at how their mind works, they really are lost.
Yeah. And I think you and I were talking the other day about, the people get labeled as fixed based on where their dials are set and how we observe them, right?
Right.
And that stops their development. It stops a whole bunch of opportunities. How do you deal with that? Do you find that a lot with a lot of business owners and executives that you work with?
Yeah, I think in a lot of cases you're trying to get them to be self-aware, and once you're self-aware, you can see other things. But the belief, and then when we talk about limiting beliefs a lot in kind of what our work is. But if you follow that through, there is no belief that isn't limiting. And that's a hard concept to get around for a while, because you go, oh yeah, but what you're actually saying there is you're saying that a limiting belief is a bad thing. And a belief that doesn't limit you is a good thing.
Right.
But all beliefs are good things. So if you're a very successful businessman, you're very goal focused, which means you've got a priority list that puts 3 things as a priority, and then everything else goes to one side. Well, if you've got your business as your your success, or making money as your success, where does your family go? Where does your sport go? Where does your spiritual side go? So we think to be successful as a human being, you have to limit your being goal focused is limiting beliefs. You say this is important, this isn't, and you separate it out. So there is no kind of belief that's not limiting.
Right.
And what we think about ourselves is the most limiting. So if you think, I think sometimes people get, particularly in the workplace, they can be very different people in the workplace than they are at home, and they don't realize that difference. And often they're very effective in the workplace because work's given them a set of rules that they can follow, that they go, yeah, I can follow the set of rules and I'm successful. But at home, they're still following or in their outside life, they're still following their own rules. And those rules are not functional. And they can't work out why they're not. They're kind of struggling at home and not struggling in the workplace. So there's a lot of that. I think people believe, once you believe that's who you are, now you've stuck yourself and you can't change. And I think, we agree there's, that's the the 5 personality model, or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
it is,
yeah. The
those kind of
ocean.
things.
Yeah.
They were done quite a few,
Long
40 to
time
50
ago.
years ago. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And they tried to define something, and they made that as something fixed.
Mm.
I don't believe anybody is fixed. It not as fixed in a point of time. You're not born, introversion and extroversion. You can move again if it's a binary dial, yes or you are or not. That's what people do, and then they assign a whole lot of other beliefs to being an introvert, shyness and stuff that have got nothing to do with it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so introversy, yes. Do you recharge on your own or not? But bottom line is, all those things are movable. Whether you're a conscientious or each of those things, we like to define people and put them in the spot. And I don't know that anybody can't move from where they are to where they want to be if that's what they choose to do.
Yeah, that's the whole neuroplasticity that we know today that didn't exist when they developed a lot of those things
Very
back
much.
then. It's funny. I think it's what you're saying as well. I don't think I've ever walked into a place that the executive hasn't called you in to come and help someone on the team, and they've already got a label for that person, right? Right?
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
this person is this because of these behaviors, right? This is how they interact with
And
others.
also, I think a lot of people from a sports background, a lot of people miss what a team is. A team isn't about hiring as many good people as you can. It's about how much can you improve the people that are at the less performing level. And so nobody's coming to work to not be a success. And so if they're not a success, and I think that's we tend to write people off, and then we applaud the people that are creating success, but they're often creating success at the expense of other people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
If you're not coming to work to help everybody in your team,
Right.
the moment the concept that this person is somehow not good for you or bad for you, or and in lots of cases you talk to that person, they're either in the wrong job or they should be in a different place. But we don't tend to look at it like that. We just look at where they're wrong. And so I think overall we need to be better at helping the people that need help to become, and again, overused comment, but their best selves. And I don't think enough of us are trying to do that. A lot of us are just busy fighting to stay afloat ourselves without thinking, particularly company owners. I mean, company owners, the most common thing I'll get is, it's not broken, why are we fixing it? So we don't do any maintenance for mental health. We do maintenance for our machinery, our expensive equipment, our most valuable assets. We'll have maintenance supervisors. We'll have people checking the oil. We'll have them checking the miles all the time.
Right.
As individuals, we'll give gym memberships so that we can be physically healthy, despite the amount of chronic disease we have in our world. We do that. But when we talk about mental health, we don't do any maintenance. If it's not broken, leave it alone. Well, maintenance should be part of your daily, and then the people that do it, and obviously you're in it, so, a lot of times it could be gratitude, it could be journaling, it could be meditation. I'm not, and the problem is there's no, the people that meditate a lot say the whole world should meditate, or the people that do yoga say the whole world should yoga. But every solution is individual for how that person feels. But we don't do maintenance on our mental health, and we can't work out why our world is getting mentally more unhealthy.
Yeah, yeah. And back to the whole neuroplasticity, I think that's the real key is in your definition of the group from 3 to 7, their score 3 to 7, they're not really problematic, they're not rocking the boat, they're not really doing anything, so they get ignored. Is that what you're saying?
But they also ignore themselves. And the problem is, the people that are 1 or 2 are coming from somewhere. So if you don't wake up happy, and I changed how I view happiness. I always used to say, well, happiness is not a thing. I use the joy word and use worthwhile and that. But happiness is an emotion, and it's designed to tell us when we're not in a fully functional state. So the happiness where people want, I'll be happy when I get, I'll be happy when I hear, that's not actually happiness, that's a desire. We call it happiness, so it takes away from the actual emotion. But happiness is you wake up content with your work day, you wake up ready to go and add value, you wake up feeling good about yourself. That's happiness. If you wake up not feeling happy, that means you need to change something. But we don't. We just bury the happiness and say, well, no, I've got to go do. We make other priorities. So we have beliefs. We have a belief that happiness is not an important emotion. But happiness is the first emotion that tells you that you need to change something. So again, you talk to people and they go, well, no, I shouldn't. People spend their whole lives unhappy. And, as a society, that's probably not a great way to be.
Yeah, yeah. How easy is it for people to go through that self-realization and discovery in order to even get to the point of saying, hey, I need to change something?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly tough. From a coaching point of view, my baseline is if you don't want to change, I've got nothing for you. And it sounds hardline, but really, if the person doesn't want to change, it doesn't matter what I say, they'll filter into their beliefs and their positions and their, which means it's really hard to find for me, because I want to deal with the people that aren't, that understand they'd like to be better, but aren't broken. And by the time, a lot of people that I'll end up talking to are people that have hit a problem in their life, any job loss, divorce, change in their life that means they're not being successful, or they can't get friends. There's a lot of things, but if we can get people to think that you don't go to the gym because, again, it's that concept of future self and now self. You don't go to the gym because it's a good thing to do for you today. You go to the gym because you know that you're working for your future self, that tomorrow you'll still be in really good shape. So we understand that. You don't eat, my nutrition program is fairly nailed down. I don't stay away from glucose and sugar and cake and pasta because I don't like it. I stay away from it because I know that my future self is going to pay the price in chronic disease if I don't do that. We don't do that mentally. And so mentally, if we could get people to think more along the lines of mental health is like going to the gym. If you're not working on it, if you're not working at how to be better, so I don't know you beat it very easily. I mean, I'm happy to do my bit because I enjoy doing it, not because I think people should do it. I'll ask people when do they want to be their best self, and they'll go, tomorrow. Tell me, how do I become my best self? Well, you actually want to be your best self the day you die. There's nothing else happening. Get up every day, accept what you're doing, become a bit better tomorrow, and don't worry if you fall down. And at the end of that spin, you're a better person than you started. So it's hard to explain to people that when they're all busy trying to be successful and get to some spot that we're in a huge hurry for. So I don't. Long answer, but I don't think I answered the question.
That's okay. I think we're going to need another 2 more sessions probably for you and I to cover some of these topics. I was just looking at the clock, and exactly. I've got 3,000 more questions that you and I can talk about. And one of the biggest ones I think that I want to leave us on is, the coaching education today. They don't teach what you're talking about, do they? What's your opinion on that? Yeah.
They teach you how to scale and make 50 grand a month. So it's not. Again, I think way too long for this.
Yeah.
Coaching is important because it's unregulated and it's filling the gap that our education system has let us down for. So people go to coaches for more education that they can't get elsewhere.
Right.
And so then it's each coach is different, and everybody's got something different to teach.
Yeah. Look, it's a pleasure. I just want to summarize a little bit of what we've just talked about, what we've covered. I'll do my best. We've covered a lot of things, but correct me if I'm wrong. There is a lot of challenges in the workplace, at home, with people not realizing that you don't have to be broken in order to improve, in order to recognize that you can grow and develop and be happier in the morning, right? Is there anything else you would add to that? It kind of covers it a little bit, right? Yeah.
It's a lot more simple than people like. People tend to complicate it, and
Mm,
really, you
mm,
should wake up every day
yeah.
feeling happy. And if you're not, you should probably try and get some help to work out how that's going to look to get happy.
Yeah. And actually, there is one thing. I really liked your dial analogy. And I think what you're talking about is at some point, we now know the neuroplasticity. Our brain has the ability for you to actually start taking control of these dials yourself. And that's where the power of what you're doing is. And I think that's really awesome. So, Rob, thank you again. It was an absolute pleasure. I know we're going to do this again, so I look forward to us getting back together and doing some more.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.